With that, I'm going to yield at this point, Mr. Chairman, and let you ask some more questions. But thank you so much. I could be here all day with you, literally asking questions, and I just am truly and deeply appreciative.
Yes, please, Dr. White.
Just one thing, I'm all about accountability and the work that I've done, and you have to change behavior. And one of the things you ask for specific, concrete recommendation is we have to name and shame, and we have to expose these people. And I think one of the most effective vehicles that we can do to start changing behavior is have some sort of sanctioning capability for people that are engaged at a high level government official, just like we do with GLOMAC, Congressman. You know, we've worked with you a lot on that, but something like and similar that we can expose these people, name and shame them, otherwise it's never going to change. And it will also encourage, for the very thing that Mr. Parle said, people to come forward. But particularly women don't feel as though there's any justice over there. And so, and unfortunately, this cuts across both sides, young boys and young girls. But I think if we could do this, because it's done at a high level, government level, both in Liberia right now, we know that, and we will put together a package for you, Congress, on something like this. Certainly it happened in Sierra Leone. The chief minister, all he did was resign, and it swept under because of the close ties of the high level government officials. So until you sanction them for this type of behavior, it's not going to stop, in my opinion, because there's nothing we can do to change their judicial system in the short term. We would love to do that, but it's not. But I do know from our experience and our work in the sanctions arena, that gets people's attention. Nobody wants to be sanctioned by the U.S. government. And also, it doesn't, when you sanction an individual, it's not sanctioning the country. So people, that's a first defense that they will use. Look what you're doing to the country. You're hurting aid. No, we're coming after you because you are engaged in this despicable behavior, public corruption or human rights violations. But I think we need to find some vehicle that we could tie in this specific behavior, because if you get sanctioned for this type of behavior, I think it's going to send a very powerful message to other people, not just on the continent of Africa, but elsewhere. Because that's one thing, for all of our ills in the United States, that's one thing that we rarely engage in, and that's ritualistic killings. And I think this is a time and place to do something and take a leadership role. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me just ask you, on that issue of changing behavior, how much of this would you say is a true believer on the part of the occult and the demonic aspect to this? I'm always reminded that in the book of Leviticus, chapter 18, Moses said, "Do not sacrifice your children to Moloch." We know that was being done by some, and it was a hideous practice of child sacrifice to appease the underworld god, which is the devil. And I'm just wondering if you do they really believe it? When these people are abusing these children, and not all children, in such a horrific way, that this is somehow truly appropriating power to themselves from what?
Yes, sadly enough, they do, and I was able to witness this firsthand in 2002 when I got over there, because they literally believed this from the civil wars, the rebels that were engaged in it, and then even after the wars were over. So there is a underbelly of darkness that none of us here can really understand, but it does exist. It's very real, and unless we expose it, it's going to continue, in my opinion.
And but you mentioned, I think, or you, Dr. White, about that the church, the Catholic Church, came out very strongly. Where is the faith entities with regards to this? When they speak out, are they listened to by their governments? The fact sheet that's put out by World Hope points out that the House of Representatives of Nigeria in 2021 introduced, doesn't say pass, introduced a resolution declaring a state of emergency related to ritual killings. Are they finally getting it? These politicians, presidents, as well as their families, or is it a means to an end to, again, somehow appropriate power from the evil one?
Thank you, Chairman Smith. I wanted to speak on that behavior change. Sure. It is true that we have a segment of people who believe that traditional medicine mixed with blood will actually heal their social problems. I have handled a number of cases. 4 months ago, I had a father who killed his son. He had 7. He was guided by a witch doctor that when you kill one, you will actually save 6 and you become rich. So there is a segment. But of course, what is fueling it is what I talked about, the politics, commerce, and then which is basically exploitation. So the witch doctors use it to exploit the vulnerable community members who are poor, and then the people believe it. If we really want to have a sustainable solutions that can end these practices, not only ritualistic sacrifice, but also any other form of violence, we need to use training to reverse the demand. Because if you look at trafficking, it's just about the demand. If you cut the demand, then supply is actually of no use. And the demand comes from those who seek solutions to the witch doctors. Or if it is trafficking, people who come and they are seeking body parts. And that's why the agent becomes active. But when you cut demand, it's a chain. So when you cut off demand, supply is of no use. And the sustainable solution is basically about some of the things is training to reverse the belief. Then the other is prevention. We talked about prevention. Like I told you, there are many countries where they have arrested perpetrators of such crimes, but we don't have laws to try the perpetrators. And the ingredients of ritualistic murder are different from the murder or trafficking, because with this, like I said, they are now no longer transporting the victims. They are killing the victims from their very homes. So we need to help countries so that they have the laws which are very preventive. The laws can prevent. In my country, we arrested one of the famous rich man, and it became a nationwide advocacy, and the media started reporting about it. But it's only Uganda that has drafted a law that can address human sacrifice. When you go to countries like Sierra Leone, Nigeria, they don't have laws. They are arresting the perpetrators, take them to police. After a while, they go back. And when a perpetrator gets out, if he has killed 2, he kills more. And even he comes back for even us, the actors.
So you said Uganda has a law?
Yes.
The others do not, or they have weak laws?
They haven't drafted laws specifically that can address ritualistic murder. And if you look at Africa, the concept of witchcraft is widely spread. Witchcraft is everywhere in Africa. So ritualistic murders are now escalating because politicians are using it to win elections, people are using it to get rich, because the exploitation is across Africa. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask you, Ms. Fuller, and you might want to respond to that too, but just tell us a little bit more about how, I mean, as Obed told us, 90% die. Did I get that right? But there are 10% who survive, and then there are others who probably, you know, for some reason they never do go through it, or their family members go through it and they have to deal with the pain and agony, the healing process. Could you speak to that?
Yes, Chairman Smith and committee members. It's sad to say that the issue of ritual murder and organ harvesting is really an heinous crime. Like I mentioned in my testimony, the post-traumatic stress disorder for those who have experienced this kind of crime is like continuing. It's a pain that they feel for almost the rest of their lives, even if they would have healed physically. And this is the situation for even the survivor I'm present here with today. And wanting to go back to when you talked about behavior change, the sad reality is that yes, a lot of Africans do believe in witchcraft and ritual murder. For me, for us to be able to combat this, we have to have tougher measures and holding governments accountable. Like Dr. Alan mentioned, for no government wants to be sanctioned, especially by the US. Most of, including the country that I come from, is donor driven. We depend a lot for funding from US and foreign governments to be able to pull through on our budget. So if sanctions or funding opportunities are tied to things, I love the idea of including the facts of ritual murder into the trafficking reports. I know Sierra Leone, and I worked closely with the anti-trafficking agency, that they do take the trafficking report seriously. So if they know they will have to provide figures and actions that will be put into the trafficking report, I know they will take actions, because we have to move people to be able to act. Another thing also is working with communities. For example, in Sierra Leone, communities are silent. The culture of silence is huge. We have to be able to help communities to speak out, to be able to make reports. And for example, what we are doing in Sierra Leone is working with paramount chiefs. Paramount chiefs are really influential in those communities. We are doing it in 4 hotspot district areas with contracts from the Georgia University through the African Programming Initiative to End Slavery. What we are doing in those 4 community, 4 hotspots districts, is to work with paramount chiefs so that they are able to include in their bylaws laws that will protect children, including trafficking. So if we could be able to work more with communities to help them to speak out, to train community structures to be able to speak out about those things, I think it will make a lot of difference if we are able, because paramount chiefs are like the custodians of the culture. So if we start to work with them and community structures, then we are building a community that will be able to speak out for themselves and make report. Because once those things are exposed, then people will not continue those crimes. It is because most of these things are shredded in secrecy. That is what is fueling the act. And we cannot also forget religious leaders. Religion in Sierra Leone is a big issue. If we can be able to work with religious leaders so that they are able to use their pulpits to be able to speak to the minds of individuals, I believe we'll be able to have the shifts in terms of how they behave.
Hey, just on that last point, if I may, Ms. Fuller, I was thinking as this testimony was taking place that religious leaders